Which defenseman is Marc Bergevin trying to trade? Stick around to the end of the show to find out. We got all the answers here on Hockey Inside Out. Welcome to this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. My name is Adam Sessler. We got Mr. Pat Hickey at the end from the Gazette, CBC Daybreak's Jessica Resnack, and also from the Gazette, Brandon Kelly. Let's start the show. The Montreal Canadiens are so much fun to watch, you'd think they were completely oblivious to the fact that they're playing in the toughest hockey market on the planet. For what feels like the first time in my life, the expectations for the Canadiens have been so low that the result is a team of young players who look like they're just out there having fun. When was the last time the Canadiens were this enjoyable to watch?
I think back to the 2014 year when they went all the way to the Eastern Conference Final. It was just a really fun time to be watching hockey because the team was competitive, it was entertaining, and then they went far into the playoffs as well. So this is what this year is reminding me of, and it's been so long to go to games and actually enjoy watching it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the high point for me in the last couple of years. They were fun just because PK Subban was around. He was always fun. This is a team that they're loose. They seem to enjoy being with each other. They seem to enjoy playing with each other. They don't have any real pressure on them because nobody expects them to win. And the thing that I like about this team is that they never quit. Mm-hmm. They've come back in several games. They don't know when they're beat. And I think that's the big key to this year.
I think we really kind of haven't seen a team like this for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
You know, exciting, fun, young, dynamic. You know, there's been a lot of pretty grisly seasons. I mean, it hasn't all been terrible. 2014 was a good year. 2010 playoffs was an extremely exciting year, the whole Halak year. But generally, there's been a lot of pretty dire years or where you're just squeaking into the playoffs. And I think what is interesting, as you mentioned, is there were no expectations. So out of nowhere, really, no one predicted this. This team came up, and as a few people are saying, it's kind of like a bit like the Vegas Golden Knights of this season.
Yeah, a little bit. The 2010 playoffs were my favorite time that I can remember. Those are the playoffs, so this is the regular season. I can't recall a regular season being this much fun to watch.
It's been a while.
Just to correct Brendan, I actually said that if everything went right for this team, they would be challenging for a playoff spot.
Of course,
however,
you predicted it.
However, I will say that everything hasn't gone right because I expected Carey Price to be better than he was. Now he's played pretty well the last 3 games. There were a couple of things that I thought were going to happen. They have to avoid injuries. They didn't do that. They've lost Armia. They've lost Byron. So things haven't gone everything as well as I expected, as well as I thought they should be, but they've still managed to stay competitive.
Well, it's interesting, because like last year, one of the things I remember talking to Jeff Molson, and he said everything went wrong. Like it really was. Like there was not one thing going in the right direction pretty well last year. Carey Price was off, Shea Weber injured in the first game, and basically everyone underperforming, whereas it's almost there are some issues this year, but everyone's overperforming. I mean, who, again, predicted the Max Domi thing? I don't even think Marc Bergevin expected that he's already passed his goal total for the entire season last year, and it's just been spectacular. Has that record now of 10 consecutive games with a point. I think the first player since Vincent Damphousse to do that. So, I mean, who predicted that? I mean, they're doing everything better than almost anyone expected, except for Pat.
Yes.
Well, Pat knows everything about hockey. I've always dreamed of having a Montreal Canadiens team that was just void of expectations and had the pressure that the energy of the city puts on it sort of relieved, and I think we have that here, so it's a lot of fun to watch. Jeff Petry has 17 points in 21 games. He's been logging crazy minutes. He played almost 34 minutes against Washington on Monday. What has surprised you about, have you been surprised by Petry's performance so far this season?
I have. That I didn't think that he was going to be able to, because he was going to be the one that's taking on, once again, Shea Weber's role, to really be able to do as well as he has in that role. That sometimes he's a little bit questionable last season, but this year he's been able to be a pretty good defenseman, and especially on a team that doesn't have a very strong defensive unit right now. And I think it's been really important for him to really step up his game and be the leader on the back end and have the kind of performance like he's had.
Yeah, he put together those minutes last year when Weber went down. But the difference this year, I think, is he's playing better defensively. And at the same time, his offensive production is up. But I think that this is one of those things. I think he's going to be very happy when Shea Weber gets back and takes some of the burden off him.
I got to say that moment Saturday night, that pass to Tatar was something else. I mean, it just kind of to me personified the season for Jeff Petry. That incredible stretch pass to set up the first goal from Tatar, and he seems to be doing everything right. I mean, there are some mishaps along the way when you're playing that amount of time, but he's been good in both ends, and he's in the top 10 of points for defensemen in the league, and he's also been good defensively. Very impressive.
On Monday night, Kotkaniemi was moved to the first unit on the power play. He assisted a goal on Jeff Petry's goal. Do you think this could be the end of the Canadiens' power play woes?
I would not go that far, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. I think when Weber comes back, that will be a big asset to the to the power play, because he has vision. He's got a big shot from the point. They have guys who can put the puck on net, Schlemko, Petry, but they don't have anybody a shot that you really fear, that you don't want to get in the way of. And they're accurate, but they're not. It's not a booming cannon-like shot. Yeah. And I think that's what they missed there. But Kotkaniemi just has such great vision on the ice. Even when he loses the puck, you can see he tries to get it back right away. And for a guy who's not very big, not very strong, he has an amazing ability to control that puck along the boards.
And he's not scared of anything. Eh?
No,
it's amazing. He doesn't back off from anyone.
But I feel like for him, it's almost this naiveness that he has, like in a good way, that he doesn't realize the situation that he's in. And giving him a power play time in the first unit, I think is really important for his development, that the power play is not working out. So what's the worst that can happen by throwing him out there? He's got experience, and then if it's not working, well, then you switch it up. It's not like you've got this red-hot power play, you throw him in there, things are not working, and everyone's pointing the finger at him. That's not the case.
Well, what's strange, actually, about him is how long it took them to put him on the first unit of the power play, because the power play, like you're saying, Jess, was going so badly. Why don't you try different things? I mean, the absolutely bizarre thing about the Canadiens this year is they're doing so well. They're right up there, one of the best teams, if not the best team, 5-on-5 in terms of goals. The power play, pretty well a total disaster, and they're still doing so well. But so why wouldn't they have tried Kotkaniemi earlier?
Here's the difference. They are number one in the league in the 5-on-5 goals. The difference is that those things are, a lot of those chances are created off the rush and coming in. But when you're set up in a zone, they don't seem to be able to do as well. It's one thing, it just becomes static.
Well, a lot of people saying they don't have a set play, right? They don't seem to have a set play on the power play, which is kind of what you're supposed to have.
Again, another anomaly. I can't remember having a Montreal Canadiens team that was number one in scoring on 5-on-5,
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, that's always been, the scoring last year, I think we were 28th in the league in scoring, and this year they're scoring in 5-on-5. They still haven't got it together on the power play. But this is a team that has a lot of different guys who can score. When Kotkaniemi, that line starts clicking, they could have 3 lines that could hurt you.
Yeah.
And there aren't many teams that do that. Everybody talks they don't have a number one center, but they have guys that are producing points. They must be pretty good.
Well, it's surprising, because really the big talk in the summer was that you were, whatever you thought of Galchenyuk and Pacioretty, you were losing the 2 guys who scored a big chunk of the Canadiens' goals, right. And then you're looking at Max Domi with 2 seasons with 9 goals, and you're thinking there's going to be a lack of scoring, and it's quite the contrary. So again, completely sort of turning upside down people's expectations.
Carey Price has turned in 3 really strong performances over the last 3 games. Do you think this is the Carey Price we can expect moving forward?
Well, I think right now it's the consistency factor with Carey Price. That's what people want to see, and not have him have these dips that he's had the last few years. So that's going to be the biggest challenge for him. I think people did not doubt that he couldn't bounce back and find his game again. It's just don't have those dips and don't make it so frequent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think last year he was consistently bad.
Yeah,
and that's been a big turnaround this year. His numbers still aren't great. But I think that, as time goes on, they'll get better.
Yeah.
Well, but 3 games. I mean, I think, you know, the performances have been extraordinary in all 3 games.
Yeah.
I mean, the Washington game was out of this world until maybe, I mean, the Eller goal in overtime was not a great goal.
Yeah.
But other than that, amazing. But it's 3 games. And it, you know, so he left for a couple of games to fix stuff upstairs, in quotes. Prior to that was playing terrible. So I think we have to wait and see. And I always think when people say it's a given he's going to come back to that'll be the new Carey Price, that it'll be like the last 3 games, we don't know. I mean, we've got to wait and see. He's got to do 20 games that are at least pretty strong. Right?
You're right. It's a small sample, but I think the thing that impressed me in those games was the fact that physically he looked like Carey Price. Mm-hmm. And I think if he said that the problems were mostly mental. They had team psychologists go on the trip out to Western Canada to work with him. But I think I'm encouraged by the fact that physically he did the job.
Well, and I thought, you know, it was a really interesting moment at the end of that Vancouver game when he was celebrating the win, and he looked so happy. And you don't really see that often with Carey Price. And it really, you know, seemed like a weight off his shoulders. So he seemed to be enjoying the game, and he looked super confident in the net, which is exactly what he didn't look when he was playing badly, right? I mean, he admitted it himself. The problems were between his ears, for whatever the nature of that was. And now he looks confident. He looks happy to be there, and he's making the amazing stops.
And I'm sure that road trip was a good time, too, for him to find his game again, because he's from northern BC. He has got quite a few family members and friends that go to these games. So he wanted to have a good outing there, and for him to do it there, I think that would help his mind as well, to do it in front of some special people.
Well, maybe he watched the show last week or the one before and took my advice on just throwing money at the problem, hiring a psychologist. You're welcome, Carey.
He loves the show, by the way. He told me last time we talked, he mentioned that.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. There are reports that Marc Bergevin is trying to trade a defenseman. If that happens, who do you think will be the most likely to get traded?
Well, I think right now it's going to be an interesting situation with Noah Juulsen having the facial fracture and being out for an indefinite amount of time. That this might sort of put it on hold a little bit to see when he's able to come back and start playing with the full cage there.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a little different. Nicolas Deslauriers came back from a similar injury in about 3.5, 4 weeks. This is going to be a little bit longer because the defensemen are more physical, you know, more contact, and it'll be a little bit longer for him. The defenseman they would, excuse me, the defenseman they would like to get rid of is Carl Alzner. Mm-hmm. Why they can do that?
Who's going to pick up that contract, Pat? I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, we would love to say Alzner goes somewhere and even pay some of that salary, but no one's going to be interested at that price.
Well, if the Canadiens pay some of that salary, do you think they can get rid of him for someone?
If they pay like 4.5 of the 4.6?
Yeah.
They can only.
You think he's worth $100,000, Kelly?
They can only.
A couple of hundred.
They can only pay 50%, and I think that they have the means to do that.
Yeah.
But whether they can find somebody to do it remains debatable.
Even for 50%, you don't think he's worth it? I feel like maybe he'd be better on another team that maybe isn't as fast, and sometimes it just takes a change of scenery for certain players.
If there's a team out there that plays a more static defense and plays, you know, he's as good a shutdown guy as you can find in this league.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not the way defense is played anymore. Every team wants guys who can rush the puck. Size is no longer a big factor, and so it's going to be interesting to see whether they can move him.
If the Canadiens are able to trade a defenseman, what would you like to see them pick up in return?
Well, it's hard to say. It's to see what their real big needs are then. Like I said, with Noah Juulsen being injured right now, it's not the time to trade. And then let's just say when he does come back and they're in a similar situation, who's to say what the other injuries might be or whatever needs that they would have at that point in time.
And also things are going so well. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I suppose the one question mark is around the fourth line, but you don't even really want to mess with the other lines. I mean, is there a forward you'd like to take out of the lineup if you brought in a new forward from a defenseman trade?
The fourth line will get better when Armia and Byron are back.
Sure.
I'd like to see them get a pretty decent draft pick.
Okay. Well, that is all the time that we have for this week's show. What defenseman should the Canadiens trade, and who would you like to see them pick up in return? Let us know in the comments section below. I'm Adam Susser, and I'll see you next Thursday.